Right, Blackmagic over here is going insane, okay? I think they're really using Blackmagic now, but today's video is a little bit out of the ordinary. I know I don't normally talk about cameras, but this one was just so bizarre I had to discuss it because for the first time, I think ever, we can now buy cameras that shoot at a 12K resolution, and I thought 8K was overkill, yet no, that's not far enough, I guess. But either way, let's talk about the new Blackmagic Ursa Mini Pro now. I'm sorry I haven't brought this up earlier, but I'm a huge fan of Blackmagic. I've been using their cameras for years now, and all of my videos over the past 3 years have been recorded with Blackmagics. I have a 4K pocket cinema camera, I have a Ursa Mini as well, and if you're curious to all the gear I use, I put it all in the description, by the way. I never formally announced that, so if you want to check out those cameras, you can, but besides the point, what I like about this company is that they find this very, very delicate balance between making things functional and quality, and at the same time easy and simple to understand. There's a lot of camera companies out there that shoot at these insane frame rates and resolutions, but their user interface is very complicated and you have to take like college courses just to understand it, and the user interface Blackmagic puts on their cameras with a touch screen, and it feels very fluid, it feels very simple, is what makes their cameras so easy to learn and so easy to use, and at the same time they're able to rock, you know, insanely good quality from the sensors they pack in their cameras. And this is a cinematic Super 35 sensor which is capable of recording 12K. Also, it's 12,228 pixels by 6,480 pixels, and it will max out at 60 frames a second, okay? So this isn't some, you know, Galaxy S20 cop-out, okay, we can kind of hit 8K at 24 FPS. No, this is full-fledged 12K, even at higher frame rates, which is insane, especially if you start looking at the tech specs and realizing that that will pretty much use up about a gigabyte per second of data. Thankfully, the Ursa Mini supports external SSD drives, so you can actually write directly to those portable SSDs you plug into your laptops, which thankfully have like 1 to 2 or 5 terabytes of storage in them as well. And of course, at the same time, still supporting CFast cards, which is what I use for my content. Very portable, very small, but at the same time, you know, fast. That's where they get their name from, because you're able to write so much data on them at the same time. But if you thought 8K was overkill, well, guess what? This camera can record 8K resolution at 110 frames per second. So when is this gonna come in handy? Well, I guess if you want an insane amount of data and you want to slow down the footage later. And when it comes to 4K, which by the way is still not a commonly viewed standard, like YouTube lets us see what most of our content is viewed on, and most people do not watch YouTube videos at 4K. But I know this camera is obviously not built for YouTube, but I guarantee you a ton of YouTubers are probably gonna end up using it. The idea here that Blackmagic alludes to multiple times throughout the website is having those extra pixels makes optimizing things for 8K or 4K even better, because you can punch in, you can zoom in on videos and not lose any data. That's why I record at 4K, but I know for a fact that most people don't watch my content at 4K. It just allows me to crop in and zoom and not lose much detail. And they make that very clear on the website, because they're like, yeah, we know you're not planning of like absolutely uploading content at a full 12K resolution, because first of all, good luck finding an internet connection of someone who can actually view that much data at once. And two, good luck finding a streaming site of some type, YouTube or Vimeo, that can actually support 12K playback. And three, I double checked before recording this video, but 12K monitors, they don't exist. So there's actually no way to view this 12K video without, you know, doing the cheap like monitor stitching together. So yeah, you can buy multiple 6K monitors and turn them into a grid, but then obviously you're gonna have these lines going across the screen. So it's kind of a cheat. There's no singular panel you can display 12K video at full resolution on currently, and I just love that the tech world is getting ahead of itself sometimes when they go complete overkill and decide, hey, there's no way to view this, but let's do it anyway. So they can go well over 200 FPS if you're filming in 4K. The Blackmagic Ursa Mini I'm using to record this video right now maxes out at around 4K at 60, but it's many years old. I bought it used anyway. But it's interesting to see how much of the design characteristics were carried over from my camera to this one. And surprisingly, with an insane sensor like this, it's kind of small. If you see people actually holding it, you know, obviously bigger than the average camera, but for such an insane resolution with such groundbreaking specifications, you would kind of expect something, you know, overbearing or overkill, when in reality, it's pretty tiny. It's pretty manageable. Mini is, of course, relative compared to the pocket cinema cameras they make. It's obviously much larger, but I'm just impressed that this company, based out of Australia, by the way, can design cameras with such thermal optimizations. You know, how long can you record footage that's eating up data that quickly and still keeping things cool so that the camera does not overheat itself? To me, that's just a miracle in itself, and they should be given mad props for being a camera company that has to compete with companies like Red, who is very well known in the Hollywood world, and there's lots of high-end YouTubers that use their cameras as well. But that's the thing I love about Blackmagic, is that they kind of prioritize making their cameras relatively affordable. You know, the pocket cinema camera is just a little over $1,000 and the footage looks amazing, and their user interface feels like a smartphone display because everything is so easy to understand. It's still like very pixel dense and very rich, so you get a lot of detail out of these screens. And this new 12K camera actually starts below 12K at just a little under $10,000, which may seem like a lot, but if you consider the cameras that this is kind of competing with other Red weapons and Red dragons out there, those easily go into the $50, $60, over $100,000 department with all their accessories. And knowing that you can get this type of Blackmagic accessory for probably somewhere between $12,000 and $15,000 once you add all the attachments to it, really shows a company that doesn't really care too much about having some kind of premium brand name, or it has to be expensive because that's what the pros are used to. Kind of the Mac Pro mentality of like, hey, you know, it's $50,000 computer, someone's gonna buy it, but yeah, obviously the average Joe isn't going to. And by the way, I have no intention or plans on buying a camera like this because I think it's insanely overkill for any type of YouTube production. The only companies that would really utilize this type of performance and power would be movie studios for sure. People making content that's going to be viewed on huge displays or IMAX maybe. But with 14 stops of dynamic range as well as lots of different codec support within the camera settings itself, I imagine you could get performance that would rival that of these $50,000 Red cameras. And Red encodes in their own special codec, so I know certain people like that and they like that Red sensor look that they provide, so I don't think Red's gonna die out. I don't think they're in trouble. But knowing that this Blackmagic company that works so hard to make quality products at reasonably priced entry points while at the same time making them user-friendly and stuff like that, they optimize all their software to run on Apple hardware, which is why I'm kind of a big fan of them. You know, they optimize themselves for Final Cut as well as optimize for Apple's Metal and things like that, so it runs really well on Mac hardware, which is where my kind of bias towards Blackmagic steps in, because they're saying like you could record 12K footage on this thing and still technically edit it on a laptop, which is also crazy to think about. As performance is getting better with time for both cameras and computers, you're able to still handle insane amounts of data on like a notebook that's just like 4 pounds or something. And personally, I think this should be the limit. I think that we don't need to go too much higher with resolutions. Allowing people to scale down 12K content for 8K visuals is, I think, overdoing it as it is. I apologize, I won't be able to get my hands on one because it's out of my price range and it's not really meant for me, but I sure do expect someone like Marquez, who probably already has one by now, to start doing some videos with it. And I think it'd be really, really cool to see some creators move away from these overpriced Red cameras into some more relatively affordable Blackmagics that can be obtained by the rest of us. What do you guys think of these insane specifications of cameras? Feel free to hit me up over on Twitter, join my Discord, we can chat more about it there. This is your Blackmagic sheep here, and I'll see you in the next one.